2 hours and 35 minutes, which is coming up here shortly. And ingress is how we refer to the crew boarding Dragon.
Also inside the White Room is a movable platform that just gets extended out to the capsule just to make that boarding process much smoother for the crew to climb into Dragon. As you might expect, it's also environmentally controlled. You can see kind of a big seal right up against the side hatch, and that's just done so Dragon can be open while keeping dirt and the Florida humidity out of the capsule, making sure it's pristine for the crew. And so that seal is going to stay in place until they begin to retract it, get the arm ready to move out of the way, and by that point the hatch will already be closed.
And the White Room also has lots of tools in order to open the side hatch, complete crew ingress, and prepare for any contingencies or emergency that may be encountered.
And right now they're just in the White Room. They're getting a final briefing. You can see them with a number of different pad technicians. Everybody on that team has a specific job. Some are suit specialists who are going to help Bob and Doug get connected to their seats. Some are specialists with the Dragon capsule itself and are going to be responsible for closing the hatch. And we also typically have a photographer in there just to help kind of capture these moments as the crew gets ready. So right now we're watching, and we can see them start to line up there. We'll see Doug Hurley go in first, and so he'll be the first one through the capsule, and he's going to be ingressing. That's just our spaceflight term for entering. You're going to hear a lot of these terms throughout the next couple of days as they make their way up to orbit. Ingress getting in, egress coming out. And they're also doing that final FOD check, making sure that the crew don't have any foreign object debris, dust, dirt, anything that could interfere with the systems on Dragon just before they get in.
Right, as Leland and Lauren were mentioning earlier, they do have stuff on their suits to protect from FOD, and they have FOD covers on their boots, as they mentioned, as well as on their umbilical port on their suits, and that needs to be removed before they can ingress.
Minutes. The crew has arrived at the White Room, and its ingress is in progress on schedule.
Just listening into the nets and hearing those updates live. Yes, once the FOD check is complete, they can enter, which is happening live on your screen right now. And as they climb into Dragon, they will buckle themselves in and attach their umbilicals to their suits. And as you can see, the suit techs are there to help them get buckled and settled into those seats. And as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the suit's primary function is to protect the crew in the event of a cabin depressurization. So the suits help keep them cool, as well as delivers nitrox in case there is a suit depressurization.
As we go through this, we saw Doug Hurley go in first. He's the commander for this mission. He's closest to your screen. And then Bob Bankin's they're going to get some assistance from these suit techs as they get in. There are 4 seats inside of Dragon for these missions, and they are numbered 1 through 4 if you're looking from the perspective of the suit techs inside the hatch, going from right to left. So Doug Hurley is in seat 2, that's the commander seat, and Bob Bankin is in seat 3, which for Crew Dragon's the pilot seat. And then obviously we don't have anybody in seats 1 or 4 today. Crew Dragon is designed to carry 4 astronauts, though, on future NASA missions, and we'll see that on Crew 1, which will have 3 NASA astronauts and 1 from our partner agency, JAXA. And then directly above the crew right now, but right in front of them, once their seats get rotated, are the 3 displays that they'll use throughout the flight. And that just gives them insight into all of Dragon's systems. It allows them to take control of the vehicle and manually fly it, which we'll see them do hopefully only twice during 2 manual flight tests. As again, Dragon's autonomous, but they can jump in and take over if they need to.
And as Dan mentioned, the displays are above them right now, but those seats will rotate back for launch position so that they can easily access those displays. So coming up next, the crew will do a comm check once they're all settled in, and that's so that they can check to make sure that they can hear mission control, and then after that, their seats will be rotated into position. So let's check in with John Innsbrucker for the latest on the health of both of those vehicles. John, what's the status update today?
We're at T-minus 2 hours, 43 minutes, and counting down for the launch of Falcon 9 with Dragon to the space station. As you see, the Dragon launch pad team has obviously arrived at the pad. They got there shortly after T-minus 4 hours. open up the side hatch on Dragon, got ready for the arrival of the astronauts. We saw the crew come up the elevators, walk over and enter Dragon, and they're now getting situated inside the capsule. Now the flight team is monitoring data from Dragon. They most recently have completed a command and telemetry check of the radio frequency system on Dragon through the tracking and data relay satellite network. That looked to go well. There are no issues in work as we watch the astronauts getting situated in their seats inside the Dragon spacecraft. The Falcon 9 team is preparing for final checkouts and propellant load. Those checkouts are due to begin at T-minus 2 hours, some 42 minutes from now, when the launch crew officially gets on console in the firing room. All systems on Falcon 9 are currently go. The range continues to be green on the support side. The areas around the pad obviously clear except for the folks doing the entry into the capsule. Air and sea space are clear. We hear helicopter go by from time to time. The big concern is the weather forecast. We are continuing right now at a 50% probability of violation of the weather constraints. The big concerns are going to be the thick clouds, precipitation, possibility of lightning. I mentioned earlier, normally you get a strong sea breeze from the ocean that pushes inland and keeps the clouds from Central Florida from building up. But today the sea breeze is fairly weak, so we expect the thunderstorms will get closer to the launch pad. We're also checking downrange conditions. If there's a contingency splashdown of Dragon, we're looking at essentially the wave heights, lightning, rain along the trajectory. Right now it's marginal, but it is still go. We do expect that to improve slightly during the day. So fingers crossed there that the downrange weather looks good. But right now at T-minus 2 hours, 41 minutes as the clock continues to count down, all systems are go for launch.
All right, thanks, John I. And as we watch Bob and Doug get buckled into their seats, I'm joined once again by SpaceX's Jessica Jensen, just to kind of walk through everybody what made Dragon a 21st century spacecraft. So first off, thanks for coming in today. I know you got to come in for a launch. That's always tough.
Of course.
Walk us through again kind of Dragon's life history. I mean, we have one in a clean room pretty soon right behind us. Walk us how we got to where we are today to have Bob and Doug climbing into that spacecraft.
Sure. So SpaceX was founded to make life multiplanetary. That was why Elon started the company back in 2002. But also when he founded the company, we were a very small company for several years. And so we had to look for opportunities to, hey, how do you go from being a small company to actually putting people into orbit? So when NASA came out with the need to fly cargo to and from the International Space Station, we jumped on that because we said, hey, first, not only is carrying cargo to and from the space station cool, I bet we could actually then fly people to the International Space Station. And hey, for 8 years now we've been flying cargo.
Yeah.
And then now we have transitioned over into flying crew and cargo together. So that's basically been the evolution of Dragon, and it's been awesome.
And I know when we see Falcon 9, we get to talk a lot about reusability. Everyone is very familiar with the first stage coming back down and how cool that looks. Dragon is also designed with some reusability. In fact, you've flown Dragon multiple times, or you've flown Dragons multiple times to the space station. How does reusability factor into Dragon's life cycle?
Yeah, so I'll actually talk a little bit about both, because one thing I think everyone always thinks about reusability and, hey, it saves money or that's great, but reusability actually improves your reliability. So when we get Falcons back and when we get Dragons back, either after one mission or multiple mission, we can do all these detailed inspections on them. And that's super important because when you fly a vehicle, you can only have so many sensors on it. You can't put a sensor, every single inch of a rocket or a spacecraft.
And there's already way more than I think anybody realizes.
Exactly. But so, especially for rockets that wind up in the ocean, some people don't have any idea of what they actually went through. So the fact that we get all the hardware back, we were able to inspect literally every square inch of it and make small design changes that actually improve reliability for the whole fleet. So even though Bob and Doug are on a brand new rocket and a brand new spacecraft, those spacecraft are actually more reliable based on the knowledge we've learned from reusability.
we've walked people through a lot of the new systems on Dragon. What are just some of the cool things that are maybe beneath the surface that people don't know about with Dragon?
So I think one of the coolest things is the autonomous docking system. And what that is it's basically we have, GPS sensors on Dragon, but then we also have cameras and imaging sensors such as a LiDAR on basically the nose cone or the front part of Dragon as it's approaching the space station. And all these sensors are feeding data back to our flight computer to say, hey, how far away am I from the space station? What's my relative velocity to the space station? And then that feeds into the flight computer, which has algorithms written by our engineers to say, okay, based on how far away you are in your rates, here's how you fire the thrusters to most effectively get to the docking target. And I think that's just super cool.
Well, I mean, we're all waiting for our cars to drive ourselves to work, and for Bob and Doug, that's exactly what it's doing for them.
Exactly. And what I think is so cool is the computer does this just like flawlessly. It's easy. When I tried to do it, I failed miserably. I tried to dock Dragon to the ISS 3 times and I failed. Fourth time I got it.
Good morning.
And I will tell the public out there that on our website we actually have a Dragon ISS simulator, so you yourself can try and fire the thrusters and see how well you do. Maybe I'm just a bad driver, but I think the flight computer does a really good job.
I think we all had fun with it. All right, well, we are just starting to hear. They're going to start up those comm checks with Bob and Doug.
CDR, PLT, comm check,
So let's listen in.
CDR, loud and clear. PLT, loud and clear.
Core, loud and clear. Umbilical comm check complete. Stand by for ground station comm check.
And again, we're just listening in. They're doing these comm checks, these communication checks. So Bob and Doug are going to do a series of these checks with the teams on the ground, both the core here in Hawthorne and the launch director out in Florida. And they're going to be doing this over Dragon to ground. And they're also going to be doing it over the countdown net. Those are the 2 main loops or nets that you're going to hear going out. And they're going to be doing it through their different communications paths. We heard them do through the TDRS, or the tracking data and relay satellites. Those are those primary satellites that we're going to be used to talk to Bob and Doug throughout their flight and to send commands to Dragon. They'll also do it through ground stations. SpaceX has a worldwide network of ground stations that they're able to communicate with the vehicle, and that's what we'll be using to get video inside the cabin of Bob and Doug on their flight up. So if you tuned in the other day, this is one of the first things that they do once they get inside the vehicle, and this is just to make sure all the communication systems with the Dragon spacecraft, with the suits, everything are working. They're able to talk to and hear everybody on the ground. They'll also do it through ground stations. SpaceX has a worldwide network.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check, ground
stations that they're able to
SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
We'll be using to get video inside the cabin of
Core, loud and clear. Ground station comm check complete. Stand by for TDRS comm check.
This is one of the first things that they do once they get inside the vehicle, and this is just to make sure all the communication systems with the Dragon spacecraft, suits, everything are working. They're able to talk to and hear everybody on the ground. They'll also do it through ground stations. SpaceX has a worldwide network.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check, ground station.
And just a reminder, you're hearing the core. That's the crew operations responsible engineer. That's, if you've followed NASA missions in the past, that's the Capcom position. That is pretty much the singular voice that's talking to the astronauts throughout their flight. And that's a position based here in Hawthorne, California. And you'll also hear
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check, TDRS.
Hola, ¿qué tal amigos? ¿Cómo están? Yo soy Pedro Aviu y una vez más estamos aquí con un tutorial de OBS. En esta ocasión toca enseñar más de 2 plataformas. Yo quiero decirte, estamos subiendo videos muy seguido, así que te recomiendo que vayas al botón de suscribirte y también actives la campanita de notificaciones para que sepas cuando estamos liberando un nuevo video. Además de que le des manita arriba para que nos ayudes a que este video pueda ser visto por más.
Loud and clear.
Copy, loud and clear. Glad to have you guys on board. Stand by for comm check on Dragon to ground. Comm check complete. Stand by with comm checks with MD and LD in the launch configuration. Dragon, MD, Dragon to ground. Comm check. Dragon, MD on countdown 1.
MD Dragon, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, launch director on countdown 1. Comm check.
Copy, loud and clear. Glad to have you guys on board. Stand by for
Good afternoon, Mike. Loud and clear.
I have you the same, and good afternoon. Stand by for my comm check on Dragon to ground.
Dragon, MD, Dragon to ground.
Dragon, Spacex on Dragon to ground. Comm check.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1.
MD Dragon, loud and clear. SpaceX Dragon, loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm
I
checks
have you the
with
same.
LD.
Back to core. Dragon, launch director on countdown 1. Comm check.
Dragon, SpaceX, this concludes our launch configuration comm checks. Report when ready for seat rotation per section 2 of 4.100.
I have you the same, and good afternoon. Stand by for my comm check on Dragon.
Dragon will put that in work.
Dragon, MD, Dragon to
Copy. Dragon, SpaceX.
All right, so all those communications checks were done successfully, and you could even see, and it's so cool when we get these views right inside the cabin.
SpaceX Dragon in 2.2, we are ready for seat rotation.
Dragon, SpaceX, this copy. We will report when initiating. Report when ready for seat rotation.
But you could see Doug Hurley using his right hand. He has the talk button built into the seat itself. So just, again, showing you all of the different systems, how the suit is integrated into the seat, and it's all just one big circle for this whole spacecraft. So really cool to see those comm checks live. Jessica, thank you so much for walking us through some of the really cool updates, the upgrades. Did you have any other cool stuff besides...
Let's see. So I don't know if you guys can see, but we have the Dragon clean room here, and one of the coolest things is it is right on the main floor of our main building, so thousands of employees walk by here all the time and get to see Dragon in its final processing before it goes to the Cape. On Wednesday, the Crew 1 capsule was in here. It looked almost done. It looks a little empty right now, but that's because that capsule went off into our separate test facility for its final propulsion checks. So we do leak checks and things there, and we do that in a separate facility just because it's high-pressure testing. And then the vehicle will come back here, get its final thermal protection system put on, and then it will ship off to Cape Canaveral and get ready to launch 4 astronauts to the International Space Station.
I mean, what's it like to see it? Because when you see the first initial pressure vessel, it looks nothing like the final thing. So what's it like to just kind of watch it go through, and you just see little bits get added on, and then the next thing you know, it's a whole spacecraft.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so amazing. I'm so impressed. You know, when you look at a machine, you're like, how does this ever get built? How do people ever do this? And it really is just step by step, one piece at a time. Each piece has its critical function, and you get to watch that being built right in front of your eyes every day when you come to work.
Dragon, SpaceX, we are ready and initiating seat rotation.
Pressure vessel, it looks nothing like the
Dragon copy.
So what's it like to just kind of watch it go through? And we just heard the seat rotation's about to begin. So Jessica, thank you so much. Cool facts about Dragon for everyone to listen in on, and we can see the seats start to rotate now. Pretty soon Bob and Doug will be in their launch configuration, and they'll be ready to go.
Each piece has its critical function, and you get to watch that being built right in front of your eyes every day when you come to work.
Dragon, SpaceX, we are ready and initiating seat rotation.
And we can see the seats slowly start to rotate. Again, they're in this down position just to make it easier to climb in and out of Dragon. They'll rotate through this launch position to put their backs a little bit more parallel to the ground. It makes taking the G-force a little bit easier for the crew on the way uphill, but most importantly, positions those touchscreens directly in front of them, which is just their gateway into Dragon.
Dragon, SpaceX, seats are in the launch position.
We copy.
We can see the seats slowly. All right, in confirmation, the seats are in the launch position. Let's go down now to Gary in Mission Control Houston, where I know the entire JSC team is standing by and ready to see Dragon take flight today. Over to you, Gary. Taking the G-force a little bit easier for the crew on the way uphill.
Thanks, Dan. Very much so. Great to see good comm checks from Bob and Doug, and that their seats have been rotated into their launch position. Here in Houston, Flight Director Zeb Scoville has pulled space station flight controllers, and all systems are go for launch from the space station station side of things. Essentially, the station is prepared for Dragon to arrive 19 hours after launch. Chris Cassidy has completed his preparations for Bob and Doug to arrive. He's got a chance to view some of the broadcasts. It even said they were, quote, looking sharp. Flight controllers here will monitor the countdown, but really it's up to the teams in Kennedy and Hawthorne to get us to liftoff at this point. So we want to hear your comments as we continue to count down to launch. So let's go to the social desk now. Tahira. Essentially, the station is prepared for Dragon to arrive.
Thanks, Gary. So glad to hear that polls are go, at least on your end, and just hoping this weather just works out good for today's launch. I mean, people online are on the edge of their seats. We just checked numbers, and we're up to 1.1 million viewers right now. That's almost double when we checked last time. And right now, we also have Columbia, South Carolina is leading the viewership, so interesting to see how that changes. Let's take a broader look at the conversation online with this heat map of the United States. Now, this shows Launch America mentions by state over the past week, and we have California leading right now with the most mentions, and I'm very surprised. I really thought the Space Coast would take it home, but let's see how this changes over the course of the broadcast. And with that, let's see what y'all are posting online right now. Guys, I mean, check out these outfits. Absolutely love it. Love to just see how people are making things creative for this launch and really making it their own, putting their personal touch on it. Let's take a look at another. And we have California. Oh, we are back to the Launch America heat mentions, so let's see how that changes over the course of this broadcast. But really fun to see those photos online. Oh, we have another space pet, guys. These do not get old, so please use hashtag Launch America on social media. Right now, it looks like we have Catstronaut Boris, who is ready for his launch in the Crew Dragon capsule. I love seeing the pet owners unite for this mission. So like I said, definitely use that hashtag. We will be looking for it during the show. Marie, what's the latest at Kennedy?
Thanks to Hero, we are at T-minus 2 hours, 26 minutes, 47 seconds and counting from liftoff of the Falcon 9 from the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida, carrying NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. You see them right now aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft. It's been a very exciting day so far. The crew has been up since about 8 o'clock this morning as they prepare to head to the International Space Station as part of this Demo 2 mission for NASA.
And as we speak, the astronauts, as you saw, are inside Dragon and have completed their comm checks, so now they can communicate with the teams here on the ground. And their seats have rotated upright to their reclined launch positions, allowing them to see and access the display panel. And now they are about to, they initiate their own suit leak checks to make sure that their seat is in proper working condition before liftoff.
And in just a little bit, at about T-minus 1 hour and 55 minutes, it could happen a little bit sooner though, we're running a little bit ahead of schedule. We will see the closeout team begin to close the side hatch in preparation for flight. And that's going to be one of the key visual milestones on the timeline to liftoff. Now, we want to take you to a couple of special guests we have joining us. They are with Daryl Nail at the OSB-2 viewing location, NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine, and also Kennedy Space Center Director Bob Cabana is there with Daryl. Hi, Daryl.
Hi, Marie. That's right. We're in the fifth floor of the Operations and Support Building here at the Kennedy Space Center with a nice view of Launch Complex 39, and the two men that you mentioned are here to join me to answer a few questions. We're excited to have them both here, and they are, of course, Bob Cabana, the Director of the Kennedy Space Center, and Jim Bridenstine, Administrator for NASA. Gentlemen, thanks again for making the time to be here. Of course, the big story right now, Jim, is the weather. So let's talk a little bit about that. We can see there's some clouds building. That was forecast. You took part in a weather briefing this morning. What do you know about the weather and the decision that was made to say, hey, let's give this another shot today?
Yeah, so what got us last time was the electricity in the atmosphere, and of course today there are in fact buildups. It doesn't look like there are thunderstorms at this time, but they are expected. The question is, when when do those thunderstorms go away, and when those thunderstorms materialize, where are they located? We are predicting about a 50-50 shot of going this time, but given the fact that we are in late May in Florida, we have to take every shot we can get. So it's not likely that in a couple of days it's going to be any better than it is today. So we are a go for launch right now, and we are hoping that the weather will hold up. We almost made it on Wednesday, and the trend is better today than it was on Wednesday. So we'll see.
And I saw a forecast that said the clearing is supposed to happen right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're hoping that
launches at 3:22, clearing at the earliest 3 o'clock, at the latest 3:30. So depending on when that happens, we'll either be go or no go. But again, we're going to take every shot we've got.
Also watching the downrange weather for a potential rescue in case there were an abort.
That's right. So we have these staging areas. We're from the first stage to the second stage. That's a higher risk evolution. We want to make sure that in the case we have to exercise the launch abort at that point, that the weather is good. And of course, that's off the coast of North Carolina. The big thing there is it's great that we have a launch abort capability. The challenge is that launch abort capability includes parachutes. And with parachutes, you've got to make sure that you've got the weather to come down if there are thunderstorms or downbursts or high winds. That's problematic for the parachute system.
Right, and sea states as well, bouncing that capsule around in the ocean. Bob, of course, you're an astronaut. You know what it's like to hit the reset button and do it all over again. Get into the spacecraft, get ready to go, only to be told, no, we're not going to go today, we're going to try it again. What's that like? And then tell me about the mindset as you have to kind of reset. Do you feel less anxious? You feel more comfortable the second time around?
You know, Daryl, first off, my last flight, we counted down to 18 seconds and didn't go. Man, and when you get to 18 seconds, you're ready. The key is, it's the training that we go through, all the repetition that we do. We practice everything, including scrubs. And just because you didn't launch doesn't mean you don't have something to do. So you got to go through those back-out procedures. It's all done very professionally. Then it was out of the vehicle and into the Astrovan, back to crew quarters. And we had a positive attitude. We got a good night's rest, and we went through it again. It's a matter of doing your job, and these guys are well prepared. It's all part of what we do.
Yeah, they stopped the count at 17 minutes, but you had it all to just a few seconds. It's a big difference.
And the truth is, the next night, actually everything went really better. The weather was bad the first time. I was kind of glad we scrubbed, and we scrubbed for an issue with the vehicle that they later sorted out. As it turned out, we wouldn't have had enough prop to rendezvous with the Russian functional cargo block. But, the next night, it was just a perfectly smooth launch count. Everything just went like clockwork, and it set the stage for an awesome mission.
I think you told the press before you walked out, I think you were over there at astronaut crew quarters, we're going today. I'm wondering, where's the source of that confidence coming from?
I just got a feeling, you got to have a positive attitude. I watched a lot of weather down here supporting shuttle missions, and I'm hoping that those clouds over the I-95 corridor, that the Indian River keeps them west of us, and that stuff that's building offshore is far enough off that we can stay in an open window here at the Cape.
Good. Well, we got your positive vibe going, and we appreciate that. Jim, when you were down in the astronaut crew quarters and when they were suiting up, you got a second chance to visit with the astronauts. Kind of tell us about that, and what was their demeanor, what was their mood today?
So again, they seem loose. They were loose last time. They're loose this time. They're definitely ready to go. They're excited. They've been wanting to go for a long time now. I'll tell you one thing that I thought was a little interesting is, Bob Behnken was making fun of Doug Hurley because on Doug's last flight, they scrubbed 5 times before launching on the 6th time. So Bob Behnken seems to think that Doug Hurley is the problem in this case. But to see them joking about that as they're getting suited up, ready to go, yes, they're trained, they're ready, but they're also loose, and that's good to see because they're going to have to be on their game when we launch.
These guys are pretty impressive. Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken. I mean, Doug Hurley, an incredible pilot. Bob Behnken, he's got a PhD in mechanical engineering.
And he's a flight test engineer himself in the Air Force.
Well, in your assessment, why are these guys the right stuff?
Well, this is a test flight, and we have great astronauts that are chemists. We have great astronauts that are botanists. We have really talented and diverse very diverse astronaut corps in general. But this is a test flight, and for a test flight, what do you want? You want test pilots.